Hello. Okay. So, yes, the first thing today is let's discuss the proposed SEP4, which contains the API for Rishab's downloader object and the proposed Leica factory class. Link in the chat is pull request number, whatever it is, on the main SunPy SEP repo. You've got it beyond 6. It's really SEP repo.
There might be just something of the life.
So the idea of this is basically following on from what Rishab has done all summer and done very well, is he's pulled out all of the downloading code out of the Lightcurve object and into a fancy new clubbable unified downloader object in net. If you skip down to the unified downloader section of this SEP, you can see the proposed API for this object. So basically, in the same way that map has a factory class, downloader is a factory class, which can have clients register with the downloader. Rishab, do interrupt me if I get any of this wrong, by the way. Downloader is a factory class. You can have clients register with that factory class to add support for different attributes. So,
oh, Stephen, Stuart.
Yes.
So, someone has got a terrible echo. There's like a 15-second echo. So, does everybody?
I don't get it. I don't get it either. I'm fine.
Seems to be you, Jack. He's gone. He's given up. I'll wait for him to come back. So has everybody got this up? No one's lost it or anything. Rishab, in this example, do all of the clients support download by a time range?
I don't think NOAA supports that. Am I audible?
But my scrapper can help there.
Pardon? What?
The scrapper that I built, like I haven't worked much in that, it can help on that because it will search into the different structure of the directories for time range.
Yes. Yes, Rishab, we can hear you. Yes, David, it would. But I don't think that's the problem. Although, yes, that could simplify a lot of the code if we do that. I mean, Rishab, it's valid if you specify a time range for it to download data larger than the time range, but it should accept specifying times even if it downloads whole days. Or do people disagree with that?
Say that again.
So if the data source only supports whole day files, we should download, if you specify a time range, say you specify between 1 o'clock and 2 o'clock on the 1st of January 2012, it will download the whole of the 1st of January 2012 and return you the file for the whole of January 2000, for the whole of the 1st of January.
Yeah, that's right. That's how VSL does it. Well, like that's how most of the decent data providers that cannot give you like a subset of the data, because the data is by day by day, then it will give you the whole day. It happened with the S waves in SVO, in stereo, sorry.
David is correct. It downloads by the day.
Yeah, so if someone asks for just 1 hour from that day, then you have to download the hour, then download the day, and then just truncate, right?
No, it won't truncate. It will just give them the whole day file. Because the downloader object has no comprehension of what the file is, so it can't read it, open it, and truncate it.
Okay, so that should be in the light curve then.
Yeah, the ability to truncate is in the light curve object,
Yeah. Okay.
but this is more general than the light curve object.
Yes. Yes.
Rishabh, can you test that time range downloading for all the different sources?
Just giving a time range instead of complete days, right?
Yeah, I mean like something like
Yeah, fine. I'll go ahead and test it.
okay, cool, thank you. Anyway, where was I? I was describing this. Okay, so downloader is a factory that clients can register to, and when they register to the factory, they can describe what set of attributes they can handle. So they can say, I can handle things which have an instrument and a value of lira, for instance. So currently we've implemented, or Rishabh has implemented lira, Eve, VSO, and the NOAA one. Have you got the radio heliograph one as well, Rishabh? Go's the only one that we haven't.
Yeah.
NOAA, NORA, RESI.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll add the goes one also now.
Cool. Okay, so, and also JSOC will hopefully be supported soon as well. So the API will be this from SunPy.net import downloader and attributes. And then you can query the downloader object using attributes. The time and instrument attribute will be pulled out separately into attributes so that you can do attributes.time and attributes.instrument because they are the only two attributes that are supported by every single class, every single service, apart from JSOC, but you know, what you're going to do. And then you'll be able to do like attributes.vso to get the VSO specific attributes. So you could construct very complex queries using this because you could specify a time and then you could specify instrument AIA or JSOC series AIA level 1 and specify massively complex queries that query multiple service providers all at once.
What happens if there's two service providers that provide the same instrument?
There currently isn't. At least not with the same supported query syntax.
Yeah, but if you ask in GSOC for SDO and if you ask in VSO for SDO, how just by putting instrument how it doesn't?
The JSOC doesn't support the instrument attribute because you have to specify series to JSOC and not instrument.
Okay. Okay.
As for how we resolve that problem in general, I vaguely remember having this conversation, Rishabh, and now I can't remember how we've decided to deal with it.
Well, suppose like if we have a query which requires time and the instrument is Eve, suppose, so that can be serviced by VSO and also by the Eve client. And now that it's just a basic time, so it's faster to have the Eve client directly get the data from the provider instead of going through the VSO. So in that case, the light curve clients are given preference. And in case, suppose you use attributes like wave or something that goes along, then the VSO will be directly queried, because the clients can only handle the time range. Because in case of Lyra, in future you can have a level attribute also, but not more than that, because the clients just take the light curve clients just take one time range and they just get the data for that. So that problem actually kind of sorts itself out by like the clients understand if whether they can query whether they can service such a query.
Thank you.
I wonder whether it might be worth adding a special client attribute that forces the query to use one attribute, one client.
You mean like as a server provider?
Oh, provider, use provider. Because provider is a VSO attribute, isn't it?
Like which one? The spectral range?
No, I just mean like, I mean like a way to manually override which client it uses. For instance, if I wanted to do a simple Eve search, but I wanted to use VSO for some reason.
Oh, okay. I misunderstood you. Okay.
That can be arranged for, but yeah, it can be arranged for. I just have to require one.
Ideally, I would say that should be something that we could have in the config file, because for S0 there's a couple of other places like in France and somewhere else where they have a provider as well. How are they called?
You mean
so probably
VSO mirrors?
Which one?
Are you talking about VSO mirrors, or are you talking about actual sources?
No. It's not linked with VSO. Okay, I will look it up. I know where.
Oh yeah, there is that one that creates the temperature maps.
Yeah, that's one in
I
France,
think so.
in Paris, yeah.
But together with that one, there's other ones as well. I saw the website. I will look it up.
Yeah, Rishabh, stick that on the to-do list. Make it so that you can use the provider. What does provider do under VSO? Is that the right thing to use, or should we make our own one?
VSO provider is I believe that's the mirrors of the VSO, right?
No, because it's a query attribute.
I thought you could get VSO data. I thought there was an instance of the VSO at ROB.
There are lots of mirrors for VSO, but that's a flag to the get method, not a flag to the query method.
The provider, I think the VSO provider is for saying, if you go to the website, you see sometimes you can choose SADC or there's a few
that's the mirror again.
Okay.
I'll have to ask Joe. Okay, anyway, we'll work on that. That's a good point. So these result objects, so the query object returns a results object which contains the results for every client that it queried. And you can, as you can see, you can print how many different results there are, and so what does everyone think of this general API, especially the idea of import downloader from net and the ability to use and having attributes as a top level thing that you can access the sub package attributes through?
Is this intended to be exposed to users? We want users to do this, or?
Yes, the idea of this is that it replaces every other query mechanism apart from the HEK Helio one.
So, but for example, if I wanted a whole bunch of map data, then I could just go through map, right, or map cube. I wouldn't ever see this.
No, you'd use this. Like you don't. Map has no ability. It never has had the ability to download data.
Oh, I see. Right, okay.
You'd use currently you'd use the VSO to get the data and then feed it into map. But now you'd use this to get the data and feed it into map, or get the data and feed it into Leica.
Right.
If I play that.
Okay, I've got you. I suppose. Well, my only complaint was for the time range. We used the time range object elsewhere, and we use this attrs.time here, so it's a little bit inconsistent.
What do you mean?
So, if I want to specify a time range in the rest of SunPy, I import the time range object, right? Whereas I'm looking at the VSO to service query part of the SCP, and I see that a time range is specified using attrs.time, not time range. Just a little bit.
You can specify a time range into that. So you can do attrs.time and then give it the time range.
Oh, you can? Okay, well, right, that's fine then. It's a little bit clumsy, but...
Well, the point is that everything is... The query has to be built up of those attrs objects because they do fancy things handling binary thingy.
Operators.
And or operations and whatnot.
Alright, well, it's a little bit... I guess coming from the SolarSoft side, you just specify the string, right? Instead of like this attrs.instrument and then the string, you just specify the string, so it's a little bit more verbose, but apart from that, I think it's fine. So it's just something else that people will get used to. And plus, if you give them if we emphasize the usability or the flexibility that this gives you, then that's an advantage for SunPy.
I would suggest that we maybe call it something else. Downloader does not make it immediately clear that it's for querying, data sources and downloading specifically Solar data. It could be like, well, just to download anything. So we could call it something snappy. I don't know exactly what, but
You don't think downloader is okay? I think
it's not really. There's lots of things that are downloader. I mean, downloader of what?
I don't necessarily disagree with you, Andy, but I'm open to any suggestions you might have.
Yeah, I'll see what I can think of. I don't know.
So these are 4 4s. Yep.
We just want it to be clear that it's like for getting Solar data.
Well, it's for getting data. I mean, it might not be... Well, I suppose it is for Solar data just now, right?
Right. But I mean, that's kind of a fairly minor thing.
Do you think that people would misunderstand downloader as I can download a PDF or a PowerPoint file or...
Yes.
Yeah, that is the problem. We actually renamed the old downloader class that was a file downloader to file downloader, and then made this called downloader, which in some ways does actually make it even more stupid. But I really can't think of anything better to call it.
We can brainstorm something.
Like what? Like data something, or is that what you want?
Yeah, or Solar downloader, or yeah, I don't know exactly. Give it some thought.
It's a thing that queries all the providers.
Okay, you guys.
Call it Sloader for Solar downloader and Solar loader.
I suggest we all think about it and post some suggestions somewhere. But otherwise, I quite like it.
Yeah, I think it's pretty good. I think unifying the since we already have that with the VSO client and something similar for the HEK, this kind of makes a more unified front end to the SunPy system.
In Helio, the two services that we have that does something similar is called Unified Observing Catalog and Data Provider Access Service.
Wow.
And we can both do something similar. They query like a lot of different catalogs and get them up together. But this color is all Helios query.
I'm a little reluctant to put in. I'm a little reluctant to put in. Like call it like Solar downloader or something, just because it seems a little redundant in a package named SunPy. But I kind of see the point.
I like Unified downloader.
Yeah, it is a unified downloader, but I thought that calling it unified downloader was a bit weird. And it's not particularly self-describing. Unified what? Like,
Slide haste.
Well, we could open an issue on this. Like, what should we call it? And get
well,
people
I mean, feel free to have discussion on Michelle's open pull request. But,
yeah.
And as in, if you also have a look over the, light curve factory section of this. Obviously, because the light curve factory no longer has to deal with downloading data, the API for that's been massively simplified. You now basically pass in file names or a list of file names, a source flag if you expect that the factory won't be able to automatically identify where your data has come from, and a concatenate flag, which, if it is true, it will only return one light curve object rather than one for every file you specified. And that's it. If you wish to get a time range which is less than the time range of files you put in, you create the light curve object and then you truncate it separately.
Yeah. I mean, that's okay. I mean, at some point we could maybe add the ability to just, the truncate is included in the creation if you specify it. But it's not a big deal.
I deliberately avoided that because it's redundant. In fact, Jack told me to take it out. The point being that you can, it makes more sense to have truncate as a method object rather than part of the constructor.
Okay.
Yeah, well, in that case, the when we're rewriting the docs, it should be explicit that the data that you get is a kind of superset of the data that you request, or possibly a superset of the data you actually request. So if you only want 10 minutes of Lyra data, you still have to download that entire day's worth, right? And so the download request will give you that the whole day. And so if you want the light curve, then you have to specifically pass in again the time range that you're interested in. So you're going to have to make that truncate operation using light curve.
Yeah, but I don't think that's too bad. I mean, I think people will be not that unfamiliar with this problem. Sorry for double negative.
It is technically possible that we can stack these things in some way, but having these things separated seems to make a lot more sense to me.
Yes. No, I agree. So it's just something that the users will have to be aware of. So.
Yeah, I do agree. I don't think it's a big issue. I think the users will realize this pretty quickly. And especially if we make our documentation good, it shouldn't be a problem. We just have to figure out this separate issue, how to concatenate metadata, and then we're all sorted.
Should that be in the light curve SCP?
My opinion of that is more of a technical issue.
On a related note, maybe we should also have a. I know I'm guilty of this, but I'm going to say we should have a moratorium on adding on new light curve sources until the light curve refactor is done, or at least we should consider having moratorium soon, because otherwise we're going to create a lot of work.
I like that idea.
Although, of course, this moratorium should happen after my GBM stuff gets merged, always.
Can you just say that again, Andy? Sorry, I had distraction.
We should consider putting a moratorium soon on adding new light curve sources in preparation for the refactor.
Yes, that's a good point. In fact, I would argue that you should add your new source as a thing on Rishab's branch, not master.
I was afraid you were going to do that.
At least for the downloading segment. Because in theory, we can extract the downloading from the light curve object, put it into the unified downloader, and keep the silly create light curve instantiation setup, where you only pass create file names. Which would be daft, but that's the way it's going to go for a while, is that because as soon as we merge Rishab's pull request, we're no longer going to have built-in downloading in Lightcurve. We would have ripped it out, because there's no point in having it in two places in our code base at the same time. But I don't know who's going to write the Lightcurve factory, because it's probably going to have to be me, but I have no idea when I'm going to get around to doing it. So there is going to be a probably substantial length of time until I see the 0.6 deadline running towards me like a cliff, where we don't have we have that weird half and half system where the downloading is separate, but the decent creation mechanism hasn't been spawned yet. Unless one of you hasn't got science to do and you can do it instead.
So what you're looking for is the missing link between the never mind, the Neanderthal light curve to the modern light curve. Okay. So, also, Stuart, are you suggesting that Andy should be a guinea pig for implementing the new type of light curve? I'm working with Rashab on that, because that's what I heard out of that conversation.
Man of his skill and
Well,
Stuart, I don't see why this would be a
I
problem.
think
That's
lack
what I
of
heard.
scientific progress, he's got plenty of time to do this.
In all seriousness, it really shouldn't be that difficult.
Yeah.
We don't need one of those.
Yeah.
You did it,
Okay.
Richard. You've done a good job, right? It should be nice and easy to do.
Not really good thinking. It's actually really good.
Yeah, I'll be around, sure.
Tell you, so why don't I, Andy, just to help you and be brother in arms, maybe I could have a go at you doing Lyra.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
We'll,
So
we
you're
should look
definitely
into
going to
this,
do
yeah.
it for
Well,
GBM then?
I think. Well, the only other one that needs porting, Richard, is Goes, right?
Yeah. That is the only one left.
Okay.
Shouldn't be a problem.
Okay, Richard. I had a quick chat with Joe on IRC, and we should use provider to do the force the query thing. So pull provider out into the top namespace and implement a way where if provider is specified and it matches one of the clients, you only ever use that client.
But what I was thinking was, if for one query you require 2 different clients, and okay, a provider can also be, you can also have a provider that can be odd, if I would say that, like the way we have our other attributes. So you could maybe have an or expression for provider also.
Yeah. I mean that's fine.
Yeah, fine. I'll get the docs done first.
Yeah. I mean it's not the end of the world. We should probably wrap up what we've got before we start adding music.
Sorry.
Yes, doing the docs and wrapping up what's there at the moment is probably more important than starting to add this stuff.
Yeah, fine.
Yeah, so I think but the only client that was in master that you haven't supported is Goes, right?
Correct. And I don't know how to pronounce, but NOAA also does not support time range. I don't know. The URL is pretty static for it. It just downloads the most recent day or something. So that does not support time range.
Oh, it doesn't support time query at all.
No, I don't think so at all.
Right, okay. That's no, I mean that's okay.
We can talk to Stephen about that. I think he made that one in the first place.
Which branch is all this going to go into? This light curve refactoring?
I was considering putting it in there, but to be honest, I might just merge Rishab's pull request into master and have some kind of chaos for a while. It depends when I get time to work on the factory, or whether someone else is going to step up and help me out with it. Because I have no time to do anything at the moment. I've got all these conferences and sit work and Euro Sci-Fi coming up, and I haven't done anything for them. And then I have September to do research before I start my new job part-time in October. So.
We'll see what we can do then.
I mean, there's the base implementation for Lightcode Factory, and a lot of the stuff I did before we started this. So there is that branch on master which has got a fair bit of stuff in it. Except now that is massively overcomplicated to the point where there's no point in even trying to port it. You might as well rip it out and start again.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, can't the downloader stuff go in separate from anything to do with light curve?
Yeah, you can. The downloader stuff will need to rip out a fair bit of the light curve stuff to make it sensible.
Well, that's where like some experiments and like if we can merge in the downloader stuff and then some experiments with Andy's work could help with see where the light curve factory is going to go. I would expect. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, in reality, now the light curve factory should be, to a very good approximation, a copy and paste job of the map factory. There really shouldn't be a lot of extra stuff that needs doing. To be fair, I make all this noise about this, but if I get a spare evening at sit work, I might just do it. It depends. These things happen. I get grumpy for a day and end up writing a whole new package for something I haven't even noticed. Like that app beta testing, that was a whole Saturday where I needed to do work and I ended up implementing Windows CI instead, so anything's possible.
Stuart, do you have an initial line of thought for the factory? Which direction should the work be started on?
Say that again?
Like initial something like a use case that you would like. Suppose that right now if I do I have a wait method. If I get the file paths. So after that, how do you plan on giving that to the factory? Because the how will it read on its own? Because I had an thought about that. What I was thinking was, if I can say, it would be. Can I go ahead?
Yeah.
Well, I was thinking of suppose changing the dot wait method. What it returns right now is the file path. So instead of the file path, having a tuple which would say file path with the source. So that would make it. Then you can just you have the file path, and then you can just use the current Lightcurve factory probably with changes surely. Did I get through?
Putting,
Did I get the
put,
idea through?
instead of a tuple, you could make it return a dictionary, because then you could just do, like, you could do files equals dot weight, results dot weight, and then you could do light curve star star files, and it would pass in files, and file name and source into as keyword arguments for light curve.
What do you want the key to be? The client or the file path?
Oh, so you'd have one which is uh, so you'd have something like that as your return from the wait method.
Instead of this, why not just have goes and then all the files that probably you have which have been serviced by the ghost client in this query, instead of having a source key separately, because then you can just go over the dictionary, have the client just then pass the file part to the corresponding client to read.
because you can just do that.
Yeah, currently, right?
Well, no, not currently, but like you will be able to just do that. Although I do kind of like your idea, where you could do, because actually that would be very useful. Because if you downloaded Lyra data and Ghost data at the same time, you won't be able to you won't be able to pass that straight into the Lycode factory because it won't know how to handle the two things separately.
Yeah, that is the point.
But adding that passing into the Lycode factory would be very complicated. Because you'd effectively have to, that wouldn't be that complicated. That would work quite well, actually. Yeah, I like that
A
idea.
list of Lycodes could be written
That's
instead
good.
of just having one.
The problem comes with map. Because map won't understand that. Because if you have this situation where you have and then that into map, it will get very confusing. Or it will get very confused. You see my point? I sense that he has gone away. Anyway, we seem to have spoken for the whole meeting about this, which is interesting. Has anyone got anything else they want to talk about? Me and Rishad can continue this.
I had a quick question. Seem to be getting internal error a lot on Travis builds. Do you know what's up with that? Or should I not ask?
Where has it happened recently? I thought it had stopped.
I was just looking at my GBM data pull request.
What pull request number is that?
That's a good question. 1097. I'm not sure if there's one on there right now. But I did get it earlier.
CI is such a pain. Your build has been stopped.
Oh yeah, that's weird. I've never seen that before.
I'm sorry for logging out in the middle. I don't know what happens to my laptop during these angles.
That's okay. Rishabh, we'll continue this conversation at the end, which we're just going to wrap up a few other things now.
Sure.
Andy, have you? So I've restarted that. I've restarted those weird fails for you.
Yep.
It's 1079. I don't know why the whole of Ashishi's pull request has tanked. Same thing. The whole. I'll just kick that build off again and see what happens. Maybe PyPy is having a mare. You should also notice in pull requests now, as of this morning, that you now get reports from both our continuous integration services on the end of your pull requests. This is only jobs that have run since about 11 o'clock BST this morning.
Yeah, I got the AppVeyor report as well.
Yes. This is courtesy of Tom Robitaille, who has written a web app to do this over the weekend because he had nothing better to do with his life. I mean, he was bored. I mean, I don't know what he was doing. The thing with AppVeyor is that you cannot restart jobs, which sucks. So I think we're going to keep AppVeyor as a rather squishy requirement for pull request merging. If for some reason it has failed and it doesn't appear to be a valid bug, we're just going to sort of skip over it. But your build fail on AppVeyor is...
It's like a test fail, something I don't...
It's just a... Where is that? In database, yeah, that's a net error. That's fine. One of them passed, so... So if you quantity-unize this now...
well, I tried, and I still have the code that I rewrote available, but I discovered that it made everything a lot slower. So I ended up reverting most of it for now until I could figure out that.
That's interesting. What in particular did it make slower?
So the main function that you call is like get detector angles for date. So basically it goes off and works out the pointing of all the Fermi detectors for a whole day. And the problem, I think, is the way that I wrote the code, which is basically that it loops, so it repeatedly calls a thing that returns a quantity. And so that adds a lot of overhead because it returns a quantity every time, instead of having like a whole array and then with one quantity associated with it. So what I found was that it went from taking about 20 seconds to about 80 seconds. Which was, I thought was quite slow.
Yeah.
It wasn't fast to begin with, so so I haven't quite figured out how I should handle that. Apart from completely rewriting all the code, which I really don't want to do.
I mean, if the rules are that if only public-facing functions have to accept and return quantities. So if you make the function private and pass in and out arrays, then that's okay.
Yeah, maybe I can...
So you could wrap up the calls to the function that has to be called lots in another function that then makes an array and returns one quantity object.
Yeah, maybe I could do something like that.
Remember that SEP3 describes how to handle all this.
Yep.
So take a look over that.
Let me look into that.
If you basically, the rule is that you can have private functions that don't accept and return quantities, but for performance reasons. But to make it clear, you have to include the units in the variable names.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll work on that.
I mean, you should probably consider vectorizing your code, but that obviously may not be possible. Wow, man,
Yeah,
there is a lot of crazy code here, and
yeah, I'm sorry.
it's okay. You're allowed crazy code as long as it works.
It seems to. I checked it against other tools that do the same job elsewhere.
I'm not convinced by having this plotting command nested in this function. You could potentially have a second function pass the output the first one into.
Could do. Yeah, I could just make it a separate function, that's fine.
Is there really no better way of constructing that rotation? Because that's horrible. Also, your indentation is wrong, but that's horrible.
Well, you know, I copied it from the Fermi Science tools, essentially. So they were my inspiration.
I wonder whether that's in NumPy or in AstroPy. So axis is a unit vector. A is an angle. What the hell is that? Okay, whatever. So, yes, how much does pass fits? Does pass fits in your implementation call your Fermi instra code, or does it do all the fits passing in there?
It does all in there, I think. I'll double check, but it doesn't care about the instrument.
No, it calls. Oh no, it doesn't. No, that's okay. Okay, that's good.
The only thing that calls the instrument stuff is the download file, because if you don't specify a detector, it doesn't know which detector is best, and so it goes off and tries to figure that out. But we could change that to just fail and say, oh no, you have to tell me a detector.
I don't see any reason why your Fermi downloader client can call the instra routines. I'm okay with that.
Okay.
It shouldn't go circular and horrible. It should be okay. As long as there are no... Yeah, the only thing you have to be a little careful of the dependency stack. It doesn't use anything fancy, right?
No.
Does it use pandas?
I don't think so.
Good. Okay, that's right. I'd like to keep the pandas dependency just in the LightCode module if possible.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Anyone else got anything?
Nope.
What?
Any more for any more?
Yeah,
Any
Andy
more
has to
business?
prepare a talk and we have to help him.
Pardon?
Andy has to prepare a kicking ass talk for Solar Orbiter.
Yeah, Andy.
And we have
It's
to
all on
help
you,
him.
Andy. You're our only hope.
No pressure.
No pressure, Andy. It's
Yeah.
alright. I'm going to go out to Dublin tomorrow and soften Peter Gallagher up for you.
Excellent.
I'll give him a few SunPy stickers.
Awesome.
That reminds me, I need to take my SunPy stickers home so that I can take them to Dublin and give some to Florian.
Oh yeah, say hi to him.
I have lots of SunPy stickers. Okay. I also have to prepare a talk for Euro SciPy preferably before I go to sit work, seeing how it's the week after. Anyway. Okay. Rishabh, do you want to hang around and we'll continue discussing what the hell we make results return? Anyone else who wants to contribute to that discussion, feel free to hang around. But I think we'll call it here.
All right.
Okay.